project of mice and men. And for the first one, I need two text-based support that identifies the choice of setting. For the season, I put summertime because when George slaps the water on his face, the water is really warm, and that is because it's really hot outside, and that indicates that it is summer. And for the time, I put about 7:30ish, because George tells Lenny to go out and get wood for their fire to make so they can cook food, and he says you better hurry before it gets dark. So it gets dark around 7:30ish. And for the place, it is in Soledad, and that is, I guess that's a city. And then the Gabrielian Mountains, so that's the one for place. The time order is chronological order, because in the book it says the days was going fast now. So that indicates it's like day after day, chronological order. And another example of that is George says, tomorrow we are gonna go to work. So once again, chronological order, day after day. And the character type is static, and I'm picking George because he said, I could get along so easy and so nice if I didn't have you on my tail. He's kind of frustrated with Lenny. And another example of that is George shivered and looked at the gun, and then he threw it from him back up on the bank near the pile of old ashes. And for the alternative, for the setting, if the setting was in the city rather than the country, then it would affect the end of the story, because George would have gotten caught by the police because it's a more crowded area, so, and the gunshot would have echoed probably way more. So the police would have came to the murder site, and they would have saw George as sitting there next to the dead body with the gun in front of him, and he would have got caught and probably sent to jail for the rest of his life. So alternative for the time order, so if the time order was in flashback rather than chronological order, then it would affect the end of the story, because George would perhaps be telling the perspective, well, you be in his perspective in, say, a jail cell, and this is like just a flashback on his life of what he did to Lenny. But yeah, so it would be a flashback. And if George, this is for the character type, if George was dynamic rather than static, it would affect the end of the story, because George would just get sick and tired of Lenny just how obnoxious and annoying he is, and he would have killed him probably in the beginning of the story. And that would change the end of the story, because Lenny would be dead and you would just have George on his own journey. And I'm Michael Campbell, and this is my Nobel project.